What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So, starter Pokemon. They're one of the most popular topics in Pokemon, they're one of the most anticipated new things every time a new game comes out, and most of the time they all usually end up looking pretty good. With each new Pokemon game, we get to choose our starter from a group of 3, and each of these 3 Pokemon is always sure to have a lot of appeal and character. However, when it comes time to make this decision, which group of starter Pokemon is going to make this decision the hardest? Which group is the best overall, and for that matter, which one is the worst? Well, you guys know how it works because in this video we're going to be taking a look at just that. I'm going to rank each starter trio from worst to best and give my reasoning for all their rankings. Now, it is important to note here that this is just my opinion and I don't expect all of you to agree with me. This is ultimately just for fun because when it comes to starters, none of them really outright suck. With all that being said though, why don't we go ahead and check it out. Starting on the low end at the number 7 spot, we've got the Generation 5 starters, Snivy, Tepig, and Oshawott. Now, while I won't necessarily say that any one of these starters is bad, I only really like the Oshawott line, and the Snivy and Tepig lines have always been kind of just indifferent to me. I always kind of just look at them and I'm just like, meh. I don't dislike Snivy, but it doesn't really appeal to me at all to the point where I've never even used it in any of my Gen 5 playthroughs. Tepig is okay, and Emboar is alright, but once again, it's got the firefighting problem that the fire starters tend to have, and Pignite is kind of ugly. But then when it comes to Oshawott, I actually don't really have any problem with Oshawott, and I really like it. However, this is the only one of the 3 Unova starters that I can say that for, and when it comes to judging them as a group, if I only like one of the 3, that doesn't really spell good things in terms of ranking them amongst my favorites. Coming up next in the 6th spot is the 7th generation of starters, and that would be Rowlet, Litten, and Popplio. Now, Rowlet, Litten, and Popplio have very much the same thing going on for me that the Unova starters do in terms of just kind of being indifferent to me. However, they do have slightly more appeal, hence why they are ranked at the number 6 spot. Rowlet is my Oshawott in this situation. I absolutely love everything about Rowlet. I love Dartrix, and after being a little bit hesitant to Decidueye when these Pokemon were leaked to us before Sun and Moon came out, I absolutely love it now after getting a chance to use it, and I think its Grass Ghost typing is amazing. However, for me, after Rowlet, it really falls off a bunch when it comes to the other 2 starters. I really do like Litten, and I don't really have a problem with Torracat, but you guys probably know how I feel about Incineroar. I don't like it at all. I think it could have been much better than it ultimately is, and even though its Fire Dark typing is cool, I just don't think it needed to stand on 2 legs. I'm sorry. When it comes to Popplio, I really do like Popplio as Popplio, but then when it evolves into Brionne, it gets kind of weird looking to me, and Primarina, I don't have anything against Primarina, it just is kind of that Unova sort of situation where it doesn't have anything that really like stands out at me to get me excited, so ultimately, we've got the same sort of situation as the Unova starters, where there's only one that I really like a lot, and then the other 2 I'm kind of just indifferent to. So, I mean, it sucks, but I just can't really give them that much credit when there's only one out of the 3 that I truly, truly love. And now we're getting into the top 5, and at the number 5 spot for me would be the Kanto starters, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. Now from this point on, there's going to be a lot less things that I don't like about the starters, because with the Kanto starters, there's really only one form of any of the 3 that I'm really not the biggest fan of, and that would be Venusaur, just for kind of being just like, kind of ugly. However, I love Bulbasaur, I love Ivysaur, I love all 3 forms of the Charmander line, and I love all 3 forms of the Squirtle line, with Squirtle taking the slight edge over Charmander as my favorite Kanto starter. No matter what kinds of crazy and cool things Game Freak decides to pull out with their starter lines in the future, Kanto will always remain a very, very solid group because they don't do anything bad. They might not have the coolest pizzazz in the world, they might not have cool abilities or multiple typings or anything like that that some of the other starters do, but at the same time, there isn't really anything you can say against them because they're just so solid. So they definitely earn that spot in the top 5 for me. Okay, coming in at the number 4 spot would be the Generation 6 starters from the Kalos region, Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie. Now, ironically enough, Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie have very much the same dynamic going on for me that the Kanto starters do, in that out of the 9 different forms that we see with the starters and their evolutions, there's only one Pokemon that I really do not like, and that would be Delphox, and that's really all I'm gonna say because I don't want to make anyone angry. However, outside of Delphox, I love everything about the Kalos starters. I love each of the 3 primary forms, Chespin, Fennekin, Froakie. I really love Greninja. I really love Chestnut, despite it not being the most popular. And heck, I even don't really have a problem with any of their middle forms either. However, the thing that bumped the Generation 6 starters ahead of the Generation 1 starters for me was their cool second typings. The typings of Psychic, Fighting, and Dark are really cool and unique as a set of dual typings for a set of starters, because not only are they kind of just cool and unique to pair with Fire, Water, and Grass, but they also create another type triangle where every type has a strength and a weakness against the other 2 types. That and the fact that these starters are based around different RPG classes, with Fennekin being the Mage, Witch class, Chestnut being the Brute Strength Warrior class, and Froakie being the Ninja Stealth sort of class. I think that was a really cool theme to have for a starter trio. Now we get into the top 3 with Generation 3, the Hoenn starters, Treecko, Torchic, and Mudkip. Now, even though they're only number 3, the Generation 3 starters are one of the only groups of starters in all of Pokemon so far that I can say don't really have any bad forms or bad Pokemon amongst them. I really love every single one of these starters and their evolutions, and I can honestly see myself, and I'm pretty sure I actually have played through a Hoenn-based game with each one of these starters at some point, which for me personally is a lot to say, because usually I pick my one single favorite starter, and that's the starter I go with every time I play through any given generation. So the fact that I've played through Hoenn with all 3 of these guys is actually pretty impressive for me, and it says a lot about how much I personally like them. Other than the fact that Marshtomp and Combuskin are a bit awkward looking, there's really nothing else bad I can say about the Hoenn starters, and I'll honestly give that a pass because obviously the middle evolution starter Pokemon are notoriously awkward. But overall, each one of these guys is definitely fantastic, so I'm glad to have them in my top 3. Now, you're probably wondering, if I love every single one of the Generation 3 starters, how could they possibly only be number 3 on my list, and what could possibly be ahead of them? Well, at number 2, I actually have the Generation 2 starters, and let me explain. So with the Generation 2 starters, obviously you've got my boy Cyndaquil in there, so Cyndaquil is definitely going to be favored for me personally over Torchic, so 1 point for Johto there. It also just so happens that Totodile is also one of my more favorite Pokemon ever, so I definitely prefer it over Mudkip, even though Mudkip is adorable and I love it. And even though I do really love Chikorita, Treecko does get just a slight advantage in terms of that head-to-head matchup. However, that is the only advantage the Hoenn starters have for me over the Johto starters, so that's why I decided to give the Johto starters the nod at number 2. Now, if you weren't confused before as to why I had Generation 3 at only number 3, you might be confused at why I have Johto at number 2, despite having my favorite Pokemon of all time, Cyndaquil, amongst that group. Well, seeing as how it's the only one I haven't talked about yet, you've probably figured out that the Sinnoh starters are my favorite starters of all time so far, and it's really for actually a combination of reasons between my number 3 pick and my number 2 pick. For the same reason I really like the Hoenn starters, the Sinnoh starters really appeal to me because in my opinion, there's not a single bad one amongst any of them. I really like Turtwig, I really like Chimchar, I really like Piplup, and I really like all of their evolutions. Torterra is amazing, cool secondary ground typing, Infernape is really awesome despite having, in my opinion, a weird fire monkey combination. That always was a bit strange to me as a kid, but it pulls it off so well, and Empoleon is just absolutely awesome, and probably my favorite of the fully evolved Sinnoh starters, just because it's got that really cool water steel typing going on, and it's based around Napoleon Bonaparte, so it's like a Napoleon Emperor penguin. Like, how ingenious is that, and how impressive is that they actually pulled that off with a really good design to boot. In addition to that, when comparing it with my runner-up pick, the Johto starters, while I do like Cyndaquil better than Chimchar, obviously, I would probably say that I like Turtwig just a little bit more than Chikorita. Sorry, Chikorita, I still love you. And even though I'd probably say I like Totodile more than Piplup, I think I like Empoleon more than I do Feraligatr. So overall, comparing each individual starter head-to-head between Generation 2 and Generation 4, Generation 4 comes out slightly ahead of Generation 2 in that regard, plus on top of having the fact that I just love every single one of them and there's not a bad Pokemon there in my opinion, just really makes the Generation 4 starters so stinking good. So there it is, everyone. Now, like I said, I know people tend to get pretty opinionated when it comes to the starters, so if I ranked one of your favorites on the lower end, don't feel bad because it's only my opinion, and if you do have some thoughts that are similar or different to my own, definitely leave it below with a comment because I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're new for more Pokemon content every week. You can also help out the channel by donating $1 a month at Patreon and getting some sweet perks in general. It's a win-win for everybody involved and is very much appreciated. Anyways though, I will be back with another video on Saturday, so stay tuned for that. And with all that being said, I will smell you guys later.